The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Well, hello, everyone. This is Ted Knack, and I want to welcome everyone to Tuck 20 Online. So, as I said, this is Ted Knack. I'm president of TopoDOT, and I just want to actually just start by saying how much we appreciate your attendance on Tuck 20 Online. And from the team TopoDOT, we want to offer our sincerest best wishes for the health of you, your families, your coworkers, and as well as the health of your respective organizations. This is a difficult time, and I know we're moving through it, and looks like we're coming out the other end. So we wish you all the best. So as many of you know, TUC is our annual TopoDOT user conference. And typically it's a week-long event. It's held annually in Orlando, Florida. But this year, Team TopoDOT has worked hard to move TUC 20 to online. We've had to cancel the event, of course, and so what we try to do is give you as great an exposure to the new technology. And so basically, what I wanted to talk to you about today is and so where were we? Okay, so we worked very hard, and so basically before TUC always featured a technical and a management program. And the technical program is very hands-on workshop to learn TopoDOT and tools and workflows. And the management sessions focus more on application, business development, and organizational processes. So we're going to kick off TUC 20 with a management session called Just-in-Time Survey. So let's start there. And so before we start in the Just-in-Time Survey, we have a bit of some polling questions. And these polling questions are designed really for us to just to understand a little bit more about you, where you are in the process, what the market looks like, what the technical organizations look like that are using point clouds. So if you wouldn't mind, David is joining me today, David Turnius, and I'll introduce him in a little bit. But basically, David's going to launch some polling questions, and if you could answer those, that'd be great. All right, is that it, David?
That's it.
Okay. Well, hey, thank you very much. Really appreciate that. I will say right away, the majority of you are in transportation, and so you're going to see a lot of our examples, and basically because TopoDOT is very transportation oriented. But for those of you in building and facilities, don't despair. Basically, the same principles apply. So we'll move on, and then we'll start with the presentation. So, okay. So let's go. I just want to basically introduce you to David Turnius. And he is the techie guy. It'll be David and I. You're going to be your host today. And David, the senior software developer here at TopoDOT, and basically he's the genius behind Just-in-Time Survey. Basically, he's done a lot of work over the last couple of years. I guess it's been, David, developing Topo Cloud Pro, which was the key component in the Just-in-Time Survey. Okay, so David will be here to answer your questions later. Just want to start out with, we've talked about it a little bit, what is Just-in-Time Survey? So for this, let's talk about that a little bit. It's really what it is. It's an efficient process for continuously exploiting the value of geospatial point cloud data across downstream operations. And you'll hear me mention a lot about downstream operations. So let me just kind of put that in perspective. It's any operation where you you're feeding engineering, design, construction. You're taking that geospatial information, you're extracting useful information from that, and whether it's a model, whether it's a measurement, whether it's analysis, and you're feeding those operations. So those are the downstream operations we talk about. And again, Just-in-Time Survey by itself is not a product. It's a process, which is comprised of the components that we're going to talk about here. So to do this, we really want to start with the linear delivery process, because that is where 80–90% of the projects are now. So what is the linear delivery process? Well, there's basically an initial data acquisition, and you move through to manage, and you basically manage that. And this is the TopoDOT process, where you organize your data, you manage it, you store it where you'd like to, you assess its quality, and then you extract what you need, and you give that deliverable to a client, whomever that is. And that's, in this case, that's the downstream operation, wherever that downstream operation is. And what happens is, but that geospatial point cloud project contains enormous amounts of information, additional information. And that is still valuable to downstream design, engineering, construction, and related operations. So we've known that. Everybody's looked at the point cloud and said, wow, look at all the information there, the heights, the clearances, how can we use that? But we've noticed here at TopoDOT for years, since we started, it really hasn't been used that much. So let's talk about that a little bit. But the data, really doesn't have value. And the reason that data isn't used, because it really doesn't have much value until it's a topography model, until it's a CAD model, until it's the actual measurements, until the analyses are extracted, basically. And these things have to be extracted, and they have to be extracted by basically trained experts that can verify the extraction. So remember, it's not just about the quality of the data, it's also quality of the extraction, that you're getting the right answer from that data. And everybody knows you can measure, you can take a point cloud and have 5 people just click on points and measure, and you'll get 5 different answers. So keep that in mind. That has to be validated, and that has to go through a process. So that extraction process costs time and money. And it's a process you could extract everything and give everybody a comprehensive model. But as Professor Topo is saying here, I could, but it takes too much time and money. And one could extract just what the downstream operations need. But when you're a geospatial specialist, you don't know what they need, where they need, and when they need it. So typically, after that primary project has been delivered, you're sitting on all this data, and downstream operations don't know how to find the person responsible for that data. They don't know how to find where that data is, and they don't know how to extract the survey deliverable. So basically, this information, this valuable information, is mostly unused. It just sits there, and we all know this, right? We have a lot of DOTs tuning in today, and you'll know our geospatial customers will say, hey, we always deliver the hard drive with all the data on it, and not much gets done with it. But what you can imagine, if you can imagine that you had immediate access to survey deliverables across operations. Think about that. What if you could receive survey deliverables at a fraction of the traditional time and cost? Okay, that wasn't supposed to happen. Let's go back to here. And what if you could reduce your survey, design, and construction costs, sometimes by orders of magnitude? And what if you could achieve these objectives now, practically at no cost for implementation or operation? That's the possibility of just-in-time survey. That's what we're going to talk about today. That's what we're going to lay this out for you, and we're going to build upon the linear delivery process here. So basically, to implement just-in-time survey, we're going to show you how we can make all these claims, those statements, basically how we can meet the objectives here. So let's talk about this. So basically, again, let's go through it again. And we call this the linear delivery process, where basically you have your initial data acquisition, you manage that data however it is. It can be a thumb drive to your desktop, or you could be putting it up in the cloud. Whatever that is a management process. You assess its quality. Is it right? Is the data correct? Does it match your control? And then you extract what you need and you deliver it. Okay, so it's a very linear process, and we've talked about that now. let's see what that looks like. For those of you not familiar with the entire process, we're going to just jump to a mobile process here and give you a feel for what that looks like. So basically, this is a point cloud acquired in California. You have surveyors on the left. They're actually putting out controls. So this is a very tightly controlled process. And basically, you have the scanner. We love this video. It's the only video ever given to us where just person happened to be there at the right time with his camera, the surveyors on the side, and saw the mobile scanner go by. Obviously, the line work is then extracted. And this was done years ago. It's one of the first very successful projects. We took part in that. We actually extracted a lot of that back in the day when we did some services to support TopoDOT in the beginning. This is that linear process basically. So it's efficient, it's useful, it's become increasingly a component of all operations. So that's great. So there's basically it's better, faster, cheaper. So there's nothing wrong with that process. But we're just trying to build upon it. So to build upon the just-in-time service, remember, we're going to start with that linear delivery. We're going to build on the just-in-time survey process. So let's take a look. So Professor Topo now is going to be, he's the administrator. Basically, he's overseeing this project, and this could be anybody, but Professor Topo takes that spot now. And basically, he can organize project data in TopoDOT and use Topo Cloud to host that data on his storage account, your storage account. So there's really no middleman between me and my data. Many of you might know something about Topo Cloud. That is the administrator that comes with TopoDOT. We'll talk a little bit about that. But the key thing here is to remember that you can actually store data where you'd like it, and there is no middleman. You pay Amazon, Azure are two of our favorites. We could go to other places, but right now they're set up to the public, for the public domains. This is what typically everybody uses, and you just basically pay them to store your data. We're not in the middle. Topo Cloud is the middle. It's an administrator. So we'll talk about that in a second. We'll show you what that looks like. So what does that administrator look like? Let's just take a little bit. I'm not going to go through it in detail. There will be classes of this on Topo Cloud, data management specifically, later in the week. But for now, let's take a look about what this looks like. So when you have a project, typically you'll give it a title, you'll give it a system type. We like to know what kind it is. That's helpful when you basically metadata here. I'm not going to go through all this. In fact, I'll skip through this video a little more quickly. But you'll select a coordinate system. In this case, Arizona Central, fine. You'll look at data, the data files. These are all the data that was organized. We kind of skipped over that, but TopoDOT has many tools to organize your data, to tile it. You're going to see those tiles come up again and again. But basically, TopoDOT lets you do that very quickly. And then in JSON files, you're going to see that in our process here. JSON files, for those who don't know, are 2D. You basically can take 3D with line work, just automatically inside of TopoDOT, just basically inside of the CAD environment, just make JSON files from your line work, which are designed to basically fit over a Google map. Okay, so, and then there's rasters that will extract, and that rasters of point clouds will have information. There'll be overviews. You can have quality data. And I'm going to jump to the end just because we're moving along here. You can put some quality data, and that's what's happening here. I'm not going to go through all this, but that's being used more and more, especially from our friends at DOT, to basically put that quality data in there so they can see rasters that tell us how the deviation is between point clouds, how well it fits the control, things like that. And then you say, where do I want to upload it? You upload the project, and it's there. So you have that with TopoDOT, basically, and it's a very open system. To be honest, we're just basically keeping this file-based, and that's very clear. So I'm going to talk about that in a minute. But the last step you're going to perform here is just to basically give those people, the administrator can give anybody access to that data whom they like. So the bottom line is, all you have to do is click the username, and they'll give them a password, and basically they can get access to that data. So let's go back. And and look at what happens. So what's happening now is that we can upload that data, and that data is now organized. We can get to it. And we'll give you some examples of getting to that, okay? How we can access that data within a minute, really, any data you have. And we'll show you that. And there's no middleman between you and your data. So that's a great first step. But what happens, really, the project administrator, your poor Professor Topo, he's sitting there, and this goes away, and he's got access to all his data now. He's got it up in the cloud, but, you know, we kind of like this little picture. It just gives you, well, still, nobody really knows where Professor Topo is. There's these downstream operations, right? There's this survey, there's engineering, there's design, there's safety, there's construction, there's management. There's all these operations, and they can't get to them. They don't know who took this data. Keep in mind, you know, you have partners, you have different offices. They could be in different states, different countries. How do they find the person who has access, who actually acquired this data maybe and organized this and put it up on the cloud 6 months ago or a year ago even, by the time maybe some of these operations are in place? So how do you know? Well, he's kind of stuck out there. So it's really organized, but there's still that challenge. How do the tens or hundreds of people in downstream operations find the administrator, find Professor Topo? Okay, well, basically, we're going to use Topo Cloud Pro to communicate with the world. Topo Cloud Pro, that's a new product from us. And basically, what Topo Cloud Pro is, it's a website. And it's going to solve this problem of communication. So let's take a look and see how that's done. Remember, we're building the model. We have the linear process down here, and we're building the just-in-time survey process. So you have a website, a Topo Cloud Pro website, okay? And that is a website administered by us, and it's just a and it's a product, by the way, so we'll talk about that in a minute, but it's something you purchase, but it's not expensive. And we'll talk about that in a minute, but how does it work? Well, the project administrator can basically develop a URL, a link, and inside from his project, and basically give it to these downstream operations. Those downstream operations, so let's take a look at, before I start there, let's look at what that link looks like. So I'm going to show you how easy it is. Remember, we've uploaded the project. So once we've uploaded the project and everything's done, if you go through this process, all you have to do is say edit share links. And once you edit those share links, you just basically set up a new project and say, this, we call it a demonstration in this case, which probably make it a sexier name. But the bottom line is you can put an expiration date on it. You have control. This is your administrator. He's saying, okay, this is the URL, this is how long it's active for, and then we can also ask to be open, anybody can use it, or permissions, or credentials required to basically go in, and I can give you permission to look at that link. And then you copy that link and you give it to everyone. That's it. It's quite literally a minute you can develop that URL. So remember, all that work you've done to organize your data and put it up here correctly, now you can set up this website and for that project. And so let's take a look at what that looks like, because now they can access this data. Now these downstream operations using that URL can access that project. Now this is another interesting thing that's happening here. When we, inside of the Topo Cloud Pro, we don't give these downstream operations access to all the data. They get access to project metadata. It's a description of the project. Why is that important? Well, first of all, transferring data is not inexpensive. And recall, and the least expensive way to do this is through Topo Cloud, and the way we do it, because it's all file-based. But we've actually made it actually lower cost and much more efficient, because we're just going to give these downstream operations enough information to understand about about the project, where the data is, what they need, and basically be able to request what they need from it. That's what you're going to see being built. So let's take a look at what that looks like. We have two examples here of Topo Cloud Pro access, okay? So let's take a look at the first one, and we're going to say, okay, this is what, if I got a URL link, I would just basically say, okay, I will put that URL in here, and basically in my browser, no big deal. And first thing you're going to notice, I'm going to get a nice interface. This is my personalized interface. All the URLs I've got from whomever's given them to me are going to be listed, are going to be shown on the map. And here you see three, in this particular example, you see three mobile projects that are standalone, so that you can see the little car, no big deal. And then when you see these blue points, that means there's 4 projects, but they're so close together in that area that we've made one blue project and put the number of projects there. So when you zoom in, you can get closer. So in this particular case, there's a list of your projects, by the way. So this is available to you. You can learn how to use this in 10 minutes. Let me show you what's happening here. Here's a project that was done close to us, actually. And this is actually a static project on the static. You see the tripod. This is where the data was set up. This is the JSON files. See, take a look. You see these line work. This is basically, remember the JSON files we said we make inside of TopoDOT in the CAD environment. So all the line work, you can actually just click a button, make JSON files. It's very simple. And they can show up on the Google Maps. So you see all the line work here. Now, you can look at the point cloud in a lot of ways. Deviation assessment tells you how well if there's any separation. So you get a feel for the quality. And they give you, and these come in very quickly. This is the height elevation map of the point cloud. So that's very useful. And this is just the intensity. Now, you see how quickly these come in? This is not accelerated very much at all. It may run at twice speed or something like that. But the bottom line is these are rasters. This is not a point cloud. So this is not a point cloud that's being transferred, which means it's very, very inexpensive. Costs pennies or so to transfer that. I'm not even sure how much data that is, these rasters. But it's very, very, very low. So it happens quickly. You're not using much data. It's inexpensive. But we do have access to the images. Everybody knows that works with TopoDOT knows we can find calibrated images. We know where they are in the scene. We can do that here too. But we have something called DPEGs, and we make DPEGs inside of TopoDOT in the CAD environment, and we make them available to you in the project, so you can basically store them as part of your metadata. Why are they important? Well, DPEGs give you an image, and it gives you something to look at. Obviously, here's the field of view, what you're seeing here of the image. This is where the scanner was set up, and then you see the image out here. But that image is not just a JPEG, it's a DPEG, so it basically has spatial information channels that are overlaid over it, within it, and then basically, if I click on it, I can get a distance. I can get a geospatial point. We also have an ESRI, we're not going to show you today, but just so everybody knows, we have an ESRI. We can use DPEGs inside of ESRI, ArcMap, and ArcGIS Pro. And it'll do the same thing. These DPEGs can measure, you can pick out points, you can actually get, basically it's useful. Think of this as an engineer. Think of this as you're a designer. You don't want to extract, you don't even want the point cloud. You just want to say, I need this. And how do I find where this is? Because the cool thing is, once you know you need something, you can just click and put a work order request in. And you can basically draw, so you have some tools here to draw on the map. And you basically give it a subject line, you can give it a project number, and you can basically, when you click, you're going to go back to that project administrator. So remember Professor Topo saying nobody can get to me. Now everybody can get to them. And they can ask for the information, for the analysis they need, and you send the request, you start the dialogue. What did I say at the beginning? Topo Cloud Pro is all about communication. That's been missing. Everybody's been trying to transfer data. It's not about transferring data, it's about communication. I'm going to show you a mobile LiDAR job because this is typically what we do, and I'm going to speed through it a little more. But just to show you what this interface can look like in a larger project. Again, same kind of interface. Let's just go back, and this time we're going to go to, I don't know, Nevada, I think. And we'll go to a mobile project, and this can look like this. So again, here's what we're doing. This is the mobile project here. In this particular case, we've ran a radius of curvature tool and things like that and exported them with the other. So this is all from TopoDOT. This is all extracted from TopoDOT. You see the detail, you see what's available. And again, it takes someone 10 minutes to learn how to do this. to learn how to look at it. And again, I'm going to move through this a little faster because I know there again, the DPEG, the point cloud, you can see where you have data, where you don't have data, what's covered, what isn't. So basically, you can start to see how this can breathe life into data that's actually sitting there dormant and nobody could get to before. Now you can start getting to it. And as we zoom ahead a little bit, we'll just kind of show you where it's a little example of, again, using that DPEG. So let's, and if you don't have DPEGs, by the way, it's not a big deal. Let me see, I think I've been past it, but there it is. So there's the image. Drawing a rectangle. Okay, we saw the DPEG in the last one. I'm not going to go through it again here. There's an image. They can see what's happening. They put the work order request in, and that work order says, please give me this. Please, this is what I need from this. I'm an engineer. This is this project we're working on, and blah, blah, blah. Need speed advisory report, which we have tools for, so whatever. Okay, so now you see how we're starting to build this up. You see how we're starting to build this process that putting the administrator, situating an administrator, which would be you, not us. It would be you, whoever has the data. You'll be in charge of all this. You can situate yourself in that process. So now all of a sudden, the project administrator has access because the requests come through them. And basically, that project administrator has to feed the process to extract survey deliverables when and where they are needed. So you have to feed this process. You get these requests, then you pull down that data, or you give someone else permission to have that data, but you control the process and you send it through this linear process here, the original process. This is key. You can't remember so many attempts at hosting data have tried to basically host it up here and provide it to everybody. You've got to go through the process because there are requirements with that process. This has to be extracted correctly. It has to be signed off. Now, for those who may not be familiar with TopoDOT, Topo Cloud, I'm sorry, and how we access actual data. So we've seen how we access these metadata here and how the downstream operations get to it. Let's talk a little bit about how we access the project data. Okay, this is the actual how do I download data. So I'm going to take a look at that for you right now. So when the project administrator gets a request, he doesn't have to look through. I'm sorry, the wrong way. He doesn't have to look through all this information. He comes down to his worktop, he gets an email, and he has this, this is his interface to the world. And if he wants to see where that data is, he just looks on his map, he clicks, and it comes down from the cloud, and he actually gets the data. And of course, he can give someone else access. If you're a DOT and you want to be an administrator, but you don't want to basically set up a large extraction routine, you can basically share administration rights with the consultant who was responsible for this, but you would be in the process of making sure contractually everything's done correctly, and that extraction is being paid for within the scope of the work order. All those things can be done. There you go. Here's a mobile project. There's a lot of information, a lot of metadata comes up with that. There it is. Someone's just interested in data in a particular area. Rarely do they need 20 miles of data. So sending like hard drives with 300 gig of data is no longer necessary. You get the data you need where you need it. You do what you need. If you need images, you just basically open up the images and say, okay, there's my image project that went with this. This is the rich data environment that I have available to me. So this is 5,000 images are available to them now because he just downloaded the pointers to them. They're still in the cloud. Everything you see is coming from Amazon. And again, we're not TopoDOT. We're not in between this. This is coming from your account. And when you click on that, the image comes in. So you're in this rich data environment, and the key is you can access it anywhere within a minute. Find that data. So when you get a request, you're not looking through for an hour, looking through files and lists of files. Now I want to stop on this last one because this last one is very interesting. This is Geiger mode data. So this is the biggest, largest application we have. This took us, just to give you a feel for inside the TopoDOT environment, when we actually create these tiles, it's done automatically. You clean them up a little bit. Something like this might take 20, 30 minutes. And then you a couple hours to basically take all this data. It's 302 square miles. We basically took all that data. This was airborne data, 50 or 30 points per square meter, Geiger mode, if you're familiar with it. And basically we chopped it all up. It's done automatically. You have an icon that points to it in each square, and you can extract this by squares. You basically say which squares, which rectangles do I want, and I can download them. So let's take a look what that looks like. So where is mine? There we are. So here, for example, I'm interested in, we made some smaller ones in there for demonstration purposes. It comes down a little faster if we're actually showing that. But the bottom line is you get it quickly. This is the data I'm interested in, and here it is. That data is available to everyone. Again, you access it within minutes. And typically, the thing, this is also self-optimizing. In other words, everybody downloads just the data they need, where they need, when they need it. So nobody's downloading tons of data that's not necessary, because data transfer costs money and takes time. The other thing to notice is that we don't use, and remember I said it once, and I'm actually going to put this through the say this again and really kind of hammer home this point. Data, the thing that the Topo Cloud and our whole process does well is that we keep everything, all data transfer and storage is file-based. We are not drawing fences in the cloud and having the cloud basically processors decide where that data is needed, extract it. Because if you do that, you must spin up CPUs and you must spin up RAM, lots of it. Those pennies for storage and data transfer will very quickly go to dollars, and it becomes very expensive to work on the cloud. This keeps it all inexpensive, because this data, you're only paying 8 or 9 cents a gig to transfer it, to bring it down. And once it's on your hard drive, it's yours. Again, even if you're storing it there, it's 8 or 9 cents a gig to bring down, and then you can send it to wherever you want. It's on your hard drive cache. The second time it comes up in seconds. It's very elegantly simple. Everyone's just extracting what they need, where they need it. So by definition, it's efficient. Okay, so now we kind of see how this is done, and how we basically start building this process. Okay, so let's see what's possible now, because if you'll excuse me for a second. Okay, so what kind of, if I can get to this data quickly, what kind of data, what kind of things can I tell somebody? What might they ask me? What might these downstream operations request from, in this case, Professor Topo, or the project administrator, that we can solve for them? Well, let's take a look again. So let's just jump to, okay, let's just jump to a bridge clearance. So someone needs bridge clearance and they know they have the data, but that wasn't part of the original project. But we know the data is there. They saw it in Topo Cloud Pro. They saw the point cloud, the raster of it. They saw it over the bridge. They said, hey, can you give me the clearance? Someone can go in with the proper tools inside of TopoDOT and basically extract what's needed, verify that that's the lowest point in that lane, orthogonal to the super elevation of the road, and say, there it is. It's signed off, it's validated, it's correct. Let's take another look. What, say somebody needs a little more. They need a 3D, say, you know what, can you give me a 3D model of that bridge? That wasn't part of the original project. I've seen so many projects where you just say edge of pavement, 2 roads cross each other and they don't say anything about the bridge. Somebody needs that bridge later. This is what's done. You basically say, look, here's, you get that request, get the data, and you can imagine the administrator or someone in his team or staff or whoever he's working with gets that data within a minute, starts to process. Quite literally, in 45 minutes, I can have a 3D model of that entire bridge. If I was doing every beam with the curvature, you do this. This is just TopoDOT. This is you're back in that CAD environment. You're feeding that linear process. You're feeding that process to the TopoDOT process, which is the process you need for extraction. You can't bypass that process. Okay, so I'm going to just skip ahead a little bit and show you the whole thing. You can get just to show you how that works. Okay, let's take a look at some other things. So okay, move it ahead. There you go. You have the pier cap. Okay, but let's look at, so what if you're engineering and you're looking at something like this and you're saying, oh, okay, we've got all this mobile data. Can anybody give me the radius of curvature? I need some curve geometry on this. Well, there's tools inside of TopoDOT. Now, remember, you can find the project administrator who has access to the tools, who knows how to use them. So I'm going to skip ahead a little bit because this is kind of showing you how you extract paths. This is something that the engineers don't need to know. This is just what's being done. But this is why you have to go to somebody who has the right training and says, okay, yeah, auto detect curves, there it is. We have a line down we have a line in the center of each lane. That's very easy to do. We have to extract the lane lines. And then we'll identify the radius of curvature plus the spiral tangents, everything like that. Everything is done. There it is. These are actually individual elements that can be exported. And if I go to the end, I can actually give you the slope here and the speed advisory along this corner too. There's all kinds of things that are being done. I'm skipping ahead in these a little bit just to show you what the possibilities are. And then you actually get reports, and there you get the tangents, the slope tangents, the curve, the slope. Does it meet spec? Does it not? Whatever. You know, design. There's another great one. Here you go. You started with a project, and I'm going to skip ahead a little bit just because I want to save some time for questions. You need to basically the slope over between the lane lines. TopoDOT, once you extract the lane lines, TopoDOT does this for you automatically. So basically, let's take a look at what that looks like. We'll move ahead a little while. You'll set up things. I want to move ahead a little bit. And you'll basically get width, slope percent, if it meets or doesn't, we put in some values to show it's red. If it's something's above or below what it should be, you basically get your output. You get this all automatically. So you can imagine verifying a design. Was it built to spec, or I'm trying to understand what the current status of that particular road was. Here's another one, and we'll just go right to that. And here, this is somebody wants to know heights. So we have guardrail height. Does it meet spec? Is something happening at guardrail height? This is done. This is how you do this in TopoDOT. Again, as engineers, as administrators, as managers, you don't have to know this. Someone's trained to know it. If you're in a DOT, you can basically be the administrator and give it to the right consultant who has the ability to basically run these tools and say, I need these answers. But this is done this quickly. Okay. So you kind of see what's happening. I'm going to leave the last one. This one, construction, because this is important, and this really gets down to, I made a bold claim that you can actually save orders of magnitude of maybe construction costs somewhere. Well, let's take a look at that. What was I talking about? I don't know. I know enough about road design now just to seem like I'm smart. I'm not a transportation engineer, but we learn a lot doing these things. And one of the things I've heard about basically is this dirt volume is money all the time. And basically estimating volumes is an art, and 10% differences can mean a lot. So this is one of these cases where, say, you need to know exactly how much volume had to be extracted to widen this road. And what we're doing here inside of TopoDOT, imagine that request coming in and saying, we're going to expand this road. We see you have mobile LiDAR data here. Could you give me these volumes? Well, basically right now someone's saying, you could get a phone call and say, okay, what do you really need? Okay, we'll put a plane underneath here. How far back do you have to go? That's fine. This is easy to do. You saw how this is all maybe run at twice speed in TopoDOT. So someone does this quite literally in a half hour, and you run it. And basically there's your volume. And your surface model, your volume's there. And we've verified all this against survey piles and things like that. We know it's correct. Our algorithms are doing really well. There's your cut volume. That quickly. And imagine, so what I want to say, when I talk about, I know somewhere through a large project, when your uncertainty in your volumes and your volume estimates go from 10 to 15%, which I hear often, down to 1 and 2, I know that means money. That means a lot of savings. So I'm going to leave that here. There's all other things, management's interesting. what you can do. We have like 8 minutes left, so I really want to save some time for 5 minutes left. I'm sorry. So let's just close this with saying this. I want to save some time for questions. So here we have this process now. We've shown you how we put each individual part in that process, okay? How basically, and then it isn't expensive to do. And the result is your just-in-time survey. That's just-in-time survey. Imagine all this information now being applicable and being able to use very easily. Okay, so we have some things, interesting things, and as you know, I want to mention right now, you see Professor Topo is doing back flips, but you don't really have to do back flips to implement just-in-time survey. There's really little cost, training, or manpower required, and that leads me into something I want to mention, that in the next presentation, we're going to tell our friends at DRMP here in their geospatial department, where they have these guys are leaders in this field. They're very innovative, and they have actually adopted the just-in-time process. And they're going to tell you how this is actually working in their environment. So you're going to hear everything I said here. You're going to hear it from DRMP, what their experience has actually been. So please stay tuned. But it wasn't difficult if you think about it. It wasn't a major process. Basically, if you're a consultant, you want to offer these services, as DRMP has done, really. If you have TopoDOT, it's pretty easy. You basically organize your project data using your TopoDOT tool suite. That just means you kind of define your processes and do things correctly. I guarantee anybody using TopoDOT now, it's 80% of what you're doing. You just might want to refine a few things and make sure that you have your JSON files, make sure that you have your rasters finished, and just basically put some things in, some metadata, just do a few more steps to extracting metadata on the front end. And that's all you have to do. Use Topo Cloud to update to the medium of your choice. Remember, it's your account. We're not getting, you don't pay us to store your data. You basically put it where you'd like. It's no problem. Generate a Topo Cloud Pro link for your client. That's all you got to do. Give them a link, right? Bang, you're in the data hosting business. That simple. That simple. Now, let's say if you're a DOT or an AEC company, you just want just-in-time services as a low-cost service. It's easy. It's even easier. You ask for it. Just ask for it. You say, look, you designate a project administrator to coordinate the process. You should kind of know. Someone should know. We can help you with that. What's going on? And basically, you request the project organized and stored, and we have requirements how that data should be organized and stored. You can, if you feel that you want to put that in writing, so have some bids on a particular geospatial project, Techno 1034 will tell you, here's how I want my data pretty much organized. And it spells it out very easily. And then basically, you provide your operations access to your Topo Cloud Pro website. You basically, either request the URLs from your consultant, or you basically, develop it yourself. You can store it on your own website. It's up to you. But basically, you'll receive those low-quality, high-cost survey deliverables where and when you need them. It's not going to be difficult. So, just-in-time survey. Nothing is impossible. I love this one. So are there any questions? So I'm going to open it up. I went through this pretty quickly. And as I said, I'm going to skip ahead real quickly to show you that I really wait. There's a few more. If you really found this interesting, please stay for the next hour, because our friends at DRMP are really going to kind of show you how they put this into practice. There's a little TopoDOT icon on their truck, but it's the TopoDOT logo. We appreciate that very much. These guys have been great to work with. You're going to talk to Brent Bass, Chris Wild, and Brian King. Basically all LiDAR project managers, surveying map managers, senior LiDAR technicians. You're going to see from every aspect what this has really done, how it was implemented. They've made it real, and we're very appreciative of that. So, but we're going to go back. There's some questions. We have some time, I think. So we're just right on time. This is a time where you can ask some questions of us. Let's open it up a little bit. So if you have some, I think you raise your hand, you send them. David will get those questions. And if not, I'm actually going to open this up to unmute everybody so we can attendees. Well, if I don't want everybody, there's a lot of you out there, so we can't.
Unmuted.
So let's just unmute staff. Okay, so you guys can unmute yourself. David,
Muted.
are there any questions out there? And I see any
Yep. So
questions.
we've had some questions, and I've been answering them in text form. Philip Carrier asks if 3D modeling works on PowerDraft with TopoDOT. And yeah, TopoDOT works in PowerDraft. Topo Cloud works in PowerDraft. PowerDraft does have some 3D functionality. Some of it is stunted, but like creating meshes and creating solids. But everything in TopoDOT that we do is basically extracting break lines, 3D break lines, 3D spatial shots, and all that is available in PowerDraft. Some questions about cloud storage for government use. I know S3 does have a Amazon S3 does have a government-specific cloud storage, and I'm assuming it's to meet privacy requirements for government projects. So if you search for like AWS government cloud, you should get information regarding that. But that's been about it.
Okay. Well, it's interesting. I thought, does anybody out there? Does anybody really see the need in their organization for this kind of feedback? You know, this kind of do they see the potential profitability, or are you actually waiting to see the real thing from DRMP and what their experience has been? Okay. So I'm actually, why we're talking here, David. So if there aren't any more questions, and if there aren't any more questions, David, if you don't see any, we're going to actually power up the case study, just-in-time survey case study with DRMP. So I want to put that on start.
Okay. Well, one last thing that someone just asked. So Sebastian just asked if there are any archiving functions. So there is just one thing that we can do in Topo Cloud, and that's just adjusting the oh shoot, what's it called? Basically, we can determine like if it's stored on one data center, redundancy. We can determine the redundancy, whether it's on one data center or multiple. Azure and S3 both have. You can choose to reduce the cost, but there is no specific like archiving function to stick that into like Glacier storage or anything. So and Topo Cloud's not really built for that either. It's built for more of like an active project repository for.
Exactly. I would just add to that. I will point out that we do have the Topo Cloud for S3, which does the DPEGs and things, and you can actually take your data and you go into that S3 where you'll have that archiving environment. I think that's worth noting now. We didn't show that here, but it's a possibility there. Does that make sense, David, in this context?
I don't think that's what he was asking about.
Oh, he wasn't asking. Archiving, you meaning that he would in TopoDOT, in Topo Cloud, he could
like storing the data somewhere for long-term storage.
For Topo Cloud Pro,
for long-term storage, long-term storage in Topo Cloud Pro. But again, Topo Cloud's not built for.
No, it's not built for that. But again, if you're in that S3 environment, you can still use a lot of these principles, DPEGs, things like that from TopoDOT to use them, which is the long-term storage that probably everybody's using. So just to say that we didn't show that. That's available. That's another thing you can talk to us about in TopoDOT for S3. Okay, I'm gonna bow out now. I'm gonna end this now and I'm gonna start up the just-in-time survey. So those of you who are ready to go there, in case someone hasn't registered, and if you really want to, you can go to joinwebinar.com. and look at the webinar ID is 139-787-099. That's joinwebinar.com, 787-099. I'll leave that up for one more minute.
Unmuted.
Actually, Ted, I think that's not.
That isn't it? It was, I thought. Okay.
No, that's the audio access code. But
Okay.
the webinar ID is 177-363-768.
Okay. That was bad. All right. So sorry, I would have sent you all to the wrong place. I'm sorry. That was my mistake.
It's on the registration website if anybody needs to access.
It's on the registration website. Okay. So, all right. So I'm going to say goodbye, and we're going to move to the next one. So we'll see you at the other side, and we'll start our webinar with our friends from DRMP, and that still show you how Topo Cloud Pro, the basically just-in-time survey was implemented. Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate your attendance. Bye.